Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more Microsoft Flight Simulator. And tonight, I am going to begin a four-part mini tour of the islands of Hawaii. So, first and foremost, our aircraft that we're going to be choosing for this hop is going to be the Rutan Aircraft Factory Model 61, otherwise known as the Long-EZ. And this aircraft is brought to us by IndiaFoxtEcho. That is Dino Cataneo. It's a household name, I guess you would say, as far as flight simulation aircraft goes. I've been using Dino's aircraft since about FSX. Of course, his Tomcat was my all-time favorite, but he also made things such as the T-45 Goshawk and the Eurofighter, and of course the F-35 series, the A, the B, and the C models. This aircraft was one of the first that he decided to bring to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and he specifically did it as an experiment. However, as we're going to find, it ended up being a little bit more than just an experiment, and it actually has more longer lasting ramifications for any canard that comes to Microsoft Flight Simulator. I will, of course, explain exactly what I mean once we get into the cockpit. But first, let's take a look at the aircraft itself. So just as a bit of history, this aircraft first flew on June the 12th of 1979. It is a kit-built plane, so there are many, many different modifications. In fact, I think I've even seen a modification that has a jet engine in there, and there are a couple that have electric engines as well. This particular type that we're using has the typical Lycoming O235 flat 4 engine. So that's about 115 horsepower, which will get us a cruise speed around average of about 130 so knots. As you can see, it says it right there. Max altitude of 27,000 feet. We don't have oxygen with us, so we're not going to bother with that. 10-hour endurance, even though it's only got 2 tanks, and a range of 1,700 plus nautical miles. So pretty cool stuff. All right, so let's take a look at the liveries. Initially, when this aircraft came out, this was all the liveries you got, just these 4 liveries. But Dino has since expanded that, so he's added these 3 cool-looking liveries here. You can, of course, see the one that I'm going to be using, the military camo. You know why I love that. If you're watching this channel, you know how much I love fighters and warbirds and stuff like that. This one is a perfect storm as far as I'm concerned, so that's the one that we're going to be using. We'll go down to weight and balance, and typical for a lot of aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator, there is an issue with center of gravity, but we can fix that. So first, let's figure out how much gas we're going to need for this trip. I'm thinking about 85% roughly. Right about there should be good. And we'll need to set our center of gravity. Now, what I typically do is I will set it so that it is in between the Lemac here and this line right here, and that should be pretty well balanced. I think that works out to about 90 something on this little slider here. Yeah, we'll keep moving it until we get to that point. So right about there, that's where I want it. I have found that's the best spot to keep this thing balanced, so it's neither nose heavy nor tail heavy. The real aircraft, because of the fact that it's a canard, it's going to want to fly anyway, so you definitely want to have your center of gravity a little further back, but not too far back. You do want to keep it balanced there. But that should do nicely for our journey. And typically, we run with the November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, so we're going to continue to do that today. Now, before we hop into this aircraft, once I actually get into the first leg of the video, I will be discussing how the Autopilot works on this aircraft. And I do want to call your attention to something that I'm going to mention in the video. So we're going to go to Options here and Controls. Wait for everything to load up. You can see all the names of the various controls that are currently connected to my computer. We want to go to whatever control that you have set for either your throttle or whatever else that you have that will allow you to assign switches and so on. In my case, it is the Virpil throttle, the MT50 CM3. And I want to call your attention to under Autopilot, Let me see. Is it under autopilot? You know, I'm not 100% certain. Flight control services. Is it under radio? No, it is not. Okay. We will find it. I know what I'm looking for. I just have to find it. Instruments and systems. That's the battery. That's that. And there it is. There it is. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for. This command, toggle GPS drives nav 1. What that does, if you're familiar with how the GPS works, typically, you have VLOC and you have GPS, and that basically tells the computer which is driving the autopilot functionality for nav hold. In this aircraft, even though we do have an autopilot, it is very rudimentary. However, our GPS is even more rudimentary. We don't have all the various buttons on that GPS where we can just, set the CDI, if you know what that is. So what we have to do is we need to make sure that we have a button selected for this command, toggle GPS drives nav 1. If you plan to use autopilot and also use nav hold so that you can follow your GPS course, keep that in mind. But that's what I wanted to show you there. And we're going to go back to the welcome page and then the world map, which will of course pull up where we are in the world. So we're going to zoom into Mother Earth, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our journey, and then we'll change our weather. I think I want to start in the morning this morning, so we'll set it for like 7 a.m. And this, of course, is the island chain of Hawaii. So the sceneries that we're going to be looking at over the next 4 videos are all by the same company, and that company is South Oak Company. South Oak has been making scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator for a little while, but I noticed that they really haven't been getting a whole heck of a lot of press, so I wanted to really check out their scenery to see what they bring to the table. Needless to say, I was really pleasantly surprised. So I told them that I was going to do basically an entire tour of Hawaii, as you can see here, and we're going to start on the eastern side of the island of Maui. So we're going to start here at Hana. And for our first leg, we are going to be flying west from Hana past the main airport of Kauai, and we're going to be landing at Lanai. That's where we're going to stop for this episode that you're watching right now. In the second episode, we're going to pick it up from Lanai, and we're just going to hop over to the island of Molokai and land here at Kalaupapa. That'll be it for the second leg and the second episode of this tour. Now for the third, we are going to be taking off from Kalaupapa. We're going to follow this course right here until we get to the island of Oahu, and we're going to come down and land at Dillingham. Dillingham is, of course, on the northwestern side of Oahu. For reference, Honolulu's down here, Pearl Harbor's right here. But that'll be the end of the third leg, and as you can see, it's a little bit longer than the other 2 legs. And then finally, our fourth leg, we're going to take off from Dillingham, and we're going to cross this long channel until we reach the island of Kauai, and we're going to bring her to rest here at Port Allen. Port Allen is our final destination for the tour, so at that point in time, you can be pretty sure that the tour is finished. And just to remind you, all the airports that I have listed as our departure and arrival, they're all by South Oak Company. So I will be showing off the airports. We'll be doing little walkarounds here and there so that we can see what they've done with the scenery. And in some cases, I'll actually make it part of the closing credits so that you can see that. All right, so now that we have an idea of what we're doing, it is a very long journey, so let's go ahead and hop in there. We'll prep our plane, and we'll go ahead and get started. And actually, the last thing I want to do is I do want to set up a custom weather setting. We're going to set our time, provided it will allow me to click it. There we go. We're going to set our time for the morning, so about 7:30-ish should be fine. Alrighty, folks, I hope you are ready. Let's head to the beautiful state of Hawaii and begin our journey. right, so here we are on the island of Maui at Hana Airport, and as we can see, it is already very well modeled. Look at that. The tree almost looks real. That is awesome. You can see there's a little dude back there working on the backhoe. There's a John Deere, there's some luggage. There's a little teenage girl. Girl, where are your parents? Why are you flying without them? Unless that dude is your dad. Is that what's going on there? I don't even know. But anyway, so for these legs, as I explained in our intro, we are going to be using scenery from all the same company, and that is South Oak Company. So our departure airport and our arrival airport today are both from South Oak Company, as well as all the airports that will be featured in the next 3 videos after this one. The links, of course, will be in the video description below. So let's take a quick look around Hana Airport before we head to our chariot for the day and get out of here. Yeah, look at that. I gotta say, one of the first things that really endears me to any scenery developer that develops airports and so on is when they spend a little time doing the interior stuff, the little things, like the shine on these plastic chairs here, or well, I guess they're metal chairs if they're shiny like that, or like the little dude behind the counter there at Maui Skydiving and Mokulele Airlines. I'm assuming that's Mokulele. I don't know. I could be pronouncing it wrong. And you know what? I should probably just apologize to every single Hawaiian who's watching this from this point onwards. I'm probably going to be butchering a lot of the words. I'm so sorry. The only thing I don't like is the fact that the clock is just a picture of the clock. So it doesn't actually work. But if that's like the worst thing that I can find to complain about with this airport, I would say we're doing pretty good. Aside from which, there's an old Chinese saying that says a stopped clock is right twice a day. So eventually, this clock will have the correct time. All right, let's check out the back of the airport. And then we will get moving because we do have a very long journey ahead of us. Granted, of course, this episode will only be the first leg of that trip, but still, it's a fair amount of flying. And look at that. I love the fact that even the road is modeled, the little road going out to the hill there. No clue where that leads. I just know this view right here looks pretty cool. And then, of course, we've got all those little satellite dishes, and I'm assuming weather stations and whatnot. Pretty cool stuff here. And one of the really nice things about these airports is the fact that everything is legible. So, of course, you've got the no smoking side. You can't miss that one. But you can also read no pets or animals allowed in terminal. And even better than that, if we go near the back here, check this out. So, this is the electrician geek in me geeking out. You can actually read their electric meters. I can't tell if the disk is spinning. I don't think it is. I think it might just be a picture of it. But that's so cool. I'm glad that they put that extra time in there. Even the trash can looks good. And of course, we've got a Coke machine. We probably should stock up on Coke before we head out, but I don't drink sodas. So yeah, that won't be necessary. I've got water on my desk, so that'll have to do. But yeah, I love the love that South Oak has put into their airports. And you're going to find that as a recurring theme as we go through all these various Hawaiian airports that they have. Granted, spoiler alert, some airports are a little bit better done than others. But with that having been said, I can't help but have my jaw drop every time I come in to one of these airports. It's really cool stuff. All right, but now that we've checked out the airport, let's go check out the plane. As of course, you recall my saying on the intro, the aircraft that we're going to be using for this journey is going to be IndiaFoxtEcho's Rutan Long-EZ. And honestly, folks, this one has been a long time coming. This aircraft has been through a lot. And of course, I'll go into more detail once we're actually at cruise altitude. But suffice to say, I have wanted to show this one to you for quite some time. However, I didn't think it was exactly in the place where I could really show it to you. Now, it most definitely is, and I am absolutely honored to hop in and fly this puppy around and, show you some of the stuff that it can do. But look at the details on this. You can tell this is a kit-built plane that has seen some hours. It's just incredible. Once again, Dino Cataneo has absolutely outdone himself. And considering the fact that this was one of the very first aircraft that he came up with for Microsoft Flight Simulator, I have to say this one has really grown on me as one of my favorites. And it actually is one of my favorite experimental aircraft. I wish I could get the opportunity to fly this puppy in real life. But since we don't have that as an option, instead, what we will do is we will hop into this bird, get her started, which is a really quick and easy process, and then we'll get the show on the road. All right, so welcome inside the office, folks. And the first thing I can tell you, being in VR, this feels cramped. It's probably going to feel even more cramped once we get the canopy down. But that's also one of the things that I enjoy about this aircraft. Despite the fact that it's cramped, as soon as the canopy goes down, it kind of feels like you're in an F-16 that just happens to have a prop and, of course, canards. Now, the canards will feature prominently when you're flying this thing because this thing loves to fly, as we are going to find out. All right, but let's go ahead and get everything started here. As you can see, Dino has given this a rather weathered look. So, once again, it certainly looks like it's got some charm and some life to it. All right, first thing we're going to need is battery and alternator. So, we'll flip those on there. And we should probably get our lights on. So let's get our nav lights on. And we'll turn on the strobe lights as well. Okay. Now these two levers on the side, the one that's in the center is our pitch trim. That's really the only trim that you have on there is pitch trim. You don't really have aileron or rudder trim as well. And of course, the one in front of that is going to be the speed brake. Now, that'll come in handy when we're on approach, but I'll explain how that all works a little bit later. All right, so our mixture is already on full. I'm going to just pull it through its paces here. So we'll pull it all the way off. And we'll put it all the way back up. We're going to need fuel. With this aircraft, we've only got two tanks, left and right. So we're going to start on the left tank, provided, of course, I can click the right spot. Dino, if you don't mind, is it possible that you can turn this into a rotary switch somehow? Because trying to find the right spot to click gets a little interesting. And with such a long journey that we've got today, you can see on the fuel gauges there, we're going to need to balance out the tanks. So once this tank comes down a little lower, we'll switch it over to this tank. And occasionally, when I try to hit right, it'll go to off, which is, as you can imagine, bad when you're trying to fly. But we do have that set the way we would like, so I'm going to turn the fuel pump on for a moment, and we'll pull our throttle all the way up, leave it there for a couple of seconds, and then all the way back down, and we'll turn the fuel pump back off. All right, so we're pretty much ready for an engine start, so let's get our magnetos on. Left, right, and both. And we're just about ready to start, so we'll go clear prop. All right, perfect engine start. Everything looks good. All the needles came up to where they should. So let's go ahead and close our canopy. Provided I can hit the right spot again. There we go. There are still some minor issues with the way that the mouse cursor is placed. You can see as I go over the dash there, that's a perfect example of it. It's something that Dino has strived to work on, but really, we need a little bit more input from Asobo to make sure that everything works the way it should. And most notably, we could probably use some touch controller support here in VR. So, Asobo, that's on you. That's something you need to work on. All right, but we do have the canopy closed, and it does feel a little bit claustrophobic. It's not too bad, except I can't tell where the glass is. So yeah, that may become a problem. I might clip through. Of course, I'm in VR, so that means it's really not going to do anything if I clip through. All right, let's get our avionics master switch on. There we go. and it's going to go through its little test here. Now, the Autopilot is a relatively new inclusion, and it's a rudimentary Autopilot. But one thing that I do want to make sure that you understand, because it's not a full GPS system, it's just, as you can see, what I call the bargain basement GPS. One of the things that you're going to need to do is make sure that you have a button bound to the key command that will allow you to make the GPS your nav1. If you plan on using nav hold, you need that. So I have that switch already bound, and I'm just going to hit it really quick here. So whenever we get up to altitude and I decide to put the autopilot nav hold on, it will actually keep us on the magenta line. If you don't do that, you're going to find that the only thing you've got is heading hold, or you could lock onto a VOR, or something along those lines, which I guess is not too bad if you're planning on doing VOR to VOR flight. We, however, have a GPS. All right, so everything's pretty much set. Now, I'm not 100% certain that we should be squawking 7,000, so I'm going to change that. I believe we should be squawking 1200, so we're going to set that up. Also note, there is only an on-off switch. There is not the usual standby on alt. It only has on or off. That's pretty much it. But with that having been said, we're basically ready to go here. We're powering up nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and call. Let's see. First thing we're going to need is weather. So let's listen to that first.
Alpha Hotel November automated weather observation 19000 Zulu. Wind 068 at 12. Visibility 6. Sky condition 1000 feet scattered, 4700 feet scattered. Temperature 15 C dew point, 13 C altimeter 2983.
2983. Okay, well, that's a little low, but we'll go ahead and set that really quick. There we go, 2983. Got it. All right, so the wind is coming roughly out of the northeast, so that means we're going to want runway 8. So we'll select runway 8 from this nifty little list here. And we're going to tell him that we are taxiing out.
Papa Hotel November traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is taxiing to runway 8.
Now, one very important thing with this aircraft, it does not have parking brakes built in. Now, I have, of course, modified my version of this aircraft, so that way I do have parking brakes on there. But typically, when you start this thing up, just be advised you don't want to start throttling up really high. Otherwise, you will start moving, and it may come as a shock, especially if you've got your head down. But we're just about ready, so we're going to say goodbye to Hana. I love this airport. Absolutely one of my favorite airports in Hawaii. And I've never been to Hawaii in real life, but oh my God, would I love to go here. All right, so let's throttle up a little bit here. We're going to need to make a giant U-turn, so let's swing us out this way. This thing does like to taxi fast, so you're probably going to want to put your throttle all the way back to idle, especially if you need to make any turns like this. So we'll just let the pusher prop do its magic, because we're going to head down that way towards runway 8. There we go. Overall, I think you will find that this is a very easy aircraft to fly. And if you do it right, you can even do aerobatics. No doubt this time of year, which this is being recorded in late July, we typically have the Oshkosh EAA AirVenture. And oftentimes you will see folks bringing in their own Rutan Long-EZs to that air show. And it's always fun watching these birds fly. It's just so incredible to see these things take to the sky. And the fact that you can do aerobatics is a major plus for me. But of course, we're going to shy away from any of those kinds of shenanigans, at least for this episode. Maybe we'll do it once we get closer to our final destination of Port Allen. All right about here is where we want. So we'll come to a stop. Let's get the parking brakes back on. And we will call out and let them know that we are going to be taxiing to runway 8. Let's see. We're going to tell them we're going to depart straight out.
Papa Hotel Hotel November traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo taking off runway 8 departing straight out.
Okay. I think they got the message, so we'll come off the brakes and we'll once again give it a little bit of throttle. Now, the white lever there is for carb heat. However, I'm not 100% certain that the ramifications of carb heat or lack thereof is modeled in this aircraft. I know that icing is modeled because when this thing first came out, I decided to fly it around Canada in the middle of winter. Let me just say that was a very bad idea, and I do not recommend it at all. All right, it's going to take us a couple of minutes to get to the end of the runway. So as always, we're going to go to the outside view as we back taxi here, and we'll come back in once we've turned around. All right, so here we are at runway 8, and I should also mention that this aircraft does not have any landing lights at all, so you're not going to be doing any night flying with this one. I'm sure there's probably a way to mod it, but I really don't feel like getting into that, so I'll just stick to daytime ops. But we're just about set to go, so let's go ahead and go brakes down, throttles up, bring the throttles up to about 85%. And while that's running up, I'm also going to take the opportunity to set our cruise altitude, which for this leg is going to be about 6,000 feet. We should be able to get up there relatively quickly, too. All right, there we go, 6,000, good to go. And we'll go 90% power, full power, and brakes off. Here we go, folks. This is going to happen quickly. So as soon as we get up to about 65, 70 knots, I'll be pulling us up. And we do have a little bit of a crosswind, so be prepared for us to slip. Here we go. And there we are. All right, let's get the nose gear up. I love the little crank there. And that is so cool. And that is a feature of the real aircraft, too, is the fact that it's got that little hole where you can see out the bottom. And already, we're hitting the turbulence. That's never good. Should have got the pump on, so I'm going to do that really quick as well. There we go. We'll keep that on until we get to about 6,000. Otherwise, it's a very beautiful morning, as you can see. Now, I'm not 100% certain if South Oak also did the coastline here, but I have noticed some really dramatic coastlines with a few of their airports, so I wouldn't be too surprised if they did have a hand in that. Or at least I kind of hope they did, because that's actually pretty cool. All right, so as you can see, we are heading east. We need to go west, so first things first, let's contact the nearest tower. Looks to be Honolulu approach. So you are my first victim. I would like flight following, please.
Honolulu approach November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is type 2 miles east of Papa Hotel Hotel November 1,600 feet. Request flight following.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo Honolulu approach. Squawk 6704.
Can do. 6704 it is.
Squawk 6704 Alpha Golf Bravo.
There we go.
Alpha Golf Bravo radar contact 3 miles east of Papa Hotel Hotel November 2,400 feet. Altimeter 29.83.
All right, sounds good to me. We'll acknowledge radar contact.
Roger Alpha Golf Bravo.
And that's it. So the next time we talk to them will be when we switch stations. But our first leg is going to take us over Hana Airport. So I'm going to line us up a little bit to the left of the airport before I actually start up the autopilot. And as you can see, we've already got some pretty decent speed. I really don't have much back pressure on the stick at all. This thing just loves to climb, and that's because of these canards that we've got in the front here. So let's see. We'll go a little bit more to the east of the airport. So that way you can check out the coastline there. That is really cool. I'm so in love with how they did the Hawaiian Islands. They really gave it a lot of justice. So good job on you, Asobo. And let's see, where's Hana? There's Hana. See, that's the only downside with this aircraft. You can't really see much of what's going on below, unless, of course, you're bank. But they did a really nice job on that airport. It is incredible. All right, let's go ahead and get our autopilot on. So I want to set us up at about 700 feet per minute ascent. And we'll go ahead and get the nav hold on. There we go. That should start guiding us in the correct direction there. And we'll just wait for her to stabilize. So we are currently at 4,400 feet. We're going to 6,000. With this basic autopilot, there's nothing that you really have to do. You don't have to set your VS or anything like that. Just put your target altitude. It'll get us up there, and it'll automatically trap at that altitude. Now, the real question is going to be, will we be able to avoid these clouds? And unfortunately, I don't think that will be the case. I think we might actually do a little bit of cloud busting here. Didn't really bargain for any IFR flying, but we can deal with it. All right, look at that. We're just about lined up already. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off our fuel pump. And that'll stay off until we are ready to descend. But we will just get up to 6,000 feet, and then we'll be good to go. And I'm still on 90% throttle right now, so as soon as we start leveling off, I'll pull us back to 85% throttle, and that is where we shall remain. So beautiful. I love those wings, too. I believe this thing also does have drop tanks, but I don't recall if Dino kept them. I haven't seen them anyway, so. All right, we're getting closer. Yep, 5,000, just about 5,900 feet. All right, let's go ahead and pull the throttle back a little. So we'll keep it right around 85%. We're good to go. Okay, so let's go to the outside view and check out the beautiful Hawaiian island of Maui. All right, so I sincerely hope that you enjoyed our little view of the Maui countryside, and we're going to be seeing a little bit more of it because we're about to make a left hand turn over the major airport in Maui, which I think is called Kahului or something along those lines. Like I said, I'm going to butcher all of these Hawaiian names. I feel so sorry for the Hawaiian people. All right, but we're closing in on our first waypoint, which is named Mikey. And once we get there, the bird should do its thing automatically and just automatically switch us over to the left. So that way we can go past the airport at a safe enough altitude. Since it is a major international airport, we do have a lot of AI as well as player planes coming in on a regular basis. Now, at the time of my recording, it seems to be kind of light on players, but I'm pretty sure that'll pick up probably in a couple of hours or so when just about everybody starts getting home from work. But yeah, so awesome. Now, I'm not using real weather for this. I'm actually using another custom preset that I made. Part of the reason why I'm doing that is in the last few days, I'm not quite certain if the weather in Microsoft Flight Simulator has been accurate. It's been telling me the wind has been coming from one direction. Meanwhile, the windsock is showing something completely different. Not to mention, it's been saying that some of the winds have been blowing at speeds of 45 and 39 knots, and that doesn't seem quite right. That's gale force winds almost. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but I figured a preset would also be fine because I know some of these runways are different degrees, so we can easily change the wind direction halfway through. Is it realistic? No. But for the purposes of this video, I really don't think you're going to notice that I switched it from one direction to another direction, especially if the clouds remain pretty much the same. All right, but we are closing in on the main airport here in Maui. So let me just make sure everything looks good as far as gas in our engine. Okay, we're at 2,500 RPM, which is about right for a cruise. Typically, it'll be anywhere between 20 and 25. Usually, it's less than that. Like, you can cruise this thing on half power. But I'm also trying to make sure this video does not end up being really, really long. So our speed is 154 knots. Again, pretty sprightly, but definitely doable. Temperature and pressure look fine. Gas, let's see. The left side is starting to get a little lower now, but not low enough that I feel like I need to switch the tanks. So we should be okay there. And we just cleared out of the clouds. Very nice. So we've got a straight shot until the southern side of the island, and then we're going to make a hard right as we head towards Lanai. So right about now, how about we go back to the outside view and we'll take a look at the major built-up areas of Maui. All right, so we have reached the southern side of Maui, and this is actually one of my favorite areas because, of course, it's got those little windmills there. But Asobo, I kind of noticed that we actually have the picture of the windmill on the ground in addition to the actual objects. What's up with that? Of course, I also noticed some clouds on the actual terrain texture, so it's definitely still a work in progress, but we're not going to beat them up too much about that. Okay, so we have begun the leg to Lanai. So the next waypoint that we need to get to is just off the coast of Lanai. And about that point in time, we'll probably also want to be around 3,000 feet. Now, Lanai Airport is definitely above sea level. It's actually on a little bit of a plateau, so we don't want to get too low. And especially with those winds coming off, it can get a little bit tricky. But that's where we've got these canards, and that's where we've got the speed brakes. Now, a word of note about the speed brake here, the air brake. It's really supposed to be bound to an axis, but it doesn't seem to behave the way that I would like. So I actually had to put it on just a regular switch, which I have for speed brake up or speed brake down. But just be advised, you can hit it with your mouse and put it to any position you want in between, fully up and fully down, depending on how much of a drag influence you want to have on this aircraft. And also be advised that you'll probably want to change your trim as you're bringing this bird down because of the fact that it's going to want to nose up, especially if I were to turn off the autopilot right now. All right, but since we are still under autopilot control, let's go ahead and take the time now to bring her down to about 3,000 feet, and I'm also going to pull the power back a bit. So right about there is good, and we'll put the throttle about halfway. So slowly but surely we should start coming down. Now, a little bit of the history of this bird. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, this was one of the very first aircraft that Dino started working on for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And it actually got pushed back a little bit. And to be honest with you folks, that is my fault. When Dino first came out with this aircraft, or actually before then, when he was about to go into beta testing, I asked to be on a beta test team. Because, well, I love Dino's aircraft and I like to give them feedback and make sure that they come out and they're actually really well done. But at the time, Microsoft Flight Simulator did not support canards. It didn't recognize that this canard in front was basically the elevator, except it was in front of the main wing. And of course, Dino had to do his workarounds to get this thing to actually do what he wanted it to do. But it wasn't perfect, not by a long shot. And I was actually comparing it a lot to the V-Sky Labs Rutan Long-EZ from X-Plane, which I think is actually one of the most superbly modeled Rutan Long-EZs that I've ever seen in a flight sim. I wanted this to be on par with that. So I took it upon myself to get in touch with the developers that I know at Microsoft and Asobo and pretty much ask them to take a look at their flight model. Is that for us? I think that's for us. Okay.
119er decimal tree Alpha Golf Bravo.
Honolulu Center, got it.
Honolulu Center, November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, 4,800 feet.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, Honolulu Center, altimeter 29er decimal 8 tree continues at Dock as planned.
Okay, will do. Okay, so yeah, as I started to say, I took it upon myself to contact the devs and tell them, hey, listen, you've got people who are making canard aircraft. You really need to look at your flight model because they can't model this thing correctly, and that's the whole point of this sim. You want things to be modeled correctly. So they did. They did take a look at it, and they actually were able to pull it off in such a manner that Dino could properly model this thing the way that it was intended. Of course, it also had the side effect of delaying Dino's release of this bird because of the fact that he had to basically go back to the drawing board to do it the right way. So for that, I do apologize, Dino. I'm sorry that I kind of held up the progress on this thing, but I really did have my heart in the right place. And now that I'm flying this thing, how many months later, it was so worth it. I have no regrets. I'm glad I did that. And I do believe this will also pave the way for any other developer that wants to develop a canard aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now you can do it right. So, yeah, I am happy about this. All right. Looks like we have hit our waypoint. And we're still coming down. We're trying to get to 3,000. So I'm actually going to drop our power a little bit more here. And I think what I will do is I'll also pull the speed brakes out. There we go. That, of course, is going to pitch the nose down. So we're still under the influence of Autopilot, so that'll help us out a lot. But I'm going to bring our speed down considerably, close to where we can actually put this landing gear out. All right, so far everything looks good. We're going to go to the outside view in a moment here. And when we come back, we'll be ready to begin this approach. And let me turn the speed brakes off before I do anything else here. Okay, so we're just about ready to come in for a landing. So first thing I'm going to do is take the autopilot off and give it a little bit of forward pressure. So the airport that we're heading to, we're actually pointing directly towards. But because I happen to know that the winds are coming from 030-ish, I'm actually going to turn south. You can barely see the airport off in the distance there. So we're going to go downwind here. And I do know that this is a Unicom airport, so we're going to keep traveling this way for right now until we get to the waypoint that is just to the south, which I think is called Ayepo or something along those lines. Of course, we've increased our speed again, so I'll once again need to drop the speed brakes. There we go, and that'll, of course, slow us down considerably. All right, so we're right about at 3,000 feet. I should probably contact the airport, so let's go ahead and do that really quick here. I'm going to forego the cancel flight following part. All right, that's what we want. Papa Hotel November Yankee. And we'll get the weather.
Papa Hotel November Yankee automated weather observation 19000 Zulu. Wind 025 at 12. Visibility 6. Sky condition 1,200 feet scattered, 5,100 feet scattered. Temperature 12 C dew point, 13 C altimeter, 293.
Okay, altimeter is the same. Winds have changed. I'll leave you to guess why the winds have changed. All right, runway 3 is what we want, so we're going to tell them we want a full stop landing, and let's announce our position.
Hotel November Yankee traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo 5 miles south, 2,800 feet inbound to land runway 3.
All right, we're going to bring her down just a little bit more here. We'll call on final in a moment here. I just want to make sure that we are close to about 2,600 feet. We don't want to get much lower than that because, believe it or not, that is probably about 1,000 foot at least between sea level and where that airport is. It comes up quickly. It comes up very quickly. But I do know that the winds off that cliff are going to get a little bit violent. So we do want to have some amount of altitude buffer between us. And yeah, we'll probably also want to slow down a little bit more too. All right, let's go ahead and get our gear down. I just love that little window. That's so cool. All right, so there's our waypoint that we're looking for. So we're going to make a turn to base leg here. And I should probably call that out just in case there's anyone flying around. It's helpful to be a good pilot.
Papa Hotel November Yankee traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is on base runway 3.
All right. And once we get to that waypoint, we will begin the final approach into Lanai Airport. And that should be it for this first leg. Of course, before I let you go, I will, of course, show a little bit of the airport as the closing credits are rolling, and then we'll pick it up in the next episode where I can show you some more of the airport. At least that's the plan we're going to work with here. All right, so I'm going to start trimming us up a little bit here. We're trying to get to a speed of roughly about 75 knots. Between 75 and 80 should be good for approach. And let's see, you can barely see the airport from here, but I can at least see the beacon, so that's a good sign. We're not quite ready to turn the final just yet. Let's check our altitude. We are at 2,000, which is fine. We want to hold it there. I don't want to get any lower than that. So we'll give it some more power. Once again, we're at 85% throttle, and that should keep us level or at least in a very gentle climb. All right. It looks like we've actually got some traffic coming in. Not quite sure which way these people intend to land, but since I'm running custom weather, I'm going to be landing in this direction. Almost looks like there's somebody coming in from the north, too. Well, that's no good. There are two people heading directly for each other. And then there's me turning the final. This ought to be fun.
Papa Hotel November Yankee traffic November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo is on final runway tree to land.
Oh boy. Okay, folks. I suggest you buckle up your seatbelts because this could become a very interesting landing. We're going to go to the outside view really quick and make sure that the speed brakes are out and everything looks good. No doubt you saw the violent winds that I was referring to earlier. Yeah, that's just shady as all get out. So we're a little over glide slope because of all of that. So I'm actually going to pull our power back. And we'll see if we can salvage this approach here or if we're going to need to go around. Ideally, we probably should go around. But we've got enough distance that we should be able to pull it off. We are coming down kind of sprightly, though, almost 800 feet per minute. So we'll be able to adjust for that momentarily. But at least we're on speed. We're at 80 knots, so that works for me. And we'll try not to land short. All right, here we go. Pull the power back in. And it does take a little while for these engines to spool up, just so you're aware. All right, slight flare. Power off. And we're down, just like that. Nice and easy. We'll leave the speed brakes out for a little bit here as we roll to a stop. And look at that. They must be having a little flying get-together there. I hope they realize I'm going to need space to come in. They might not even be on the taxiway, which actually is a good thing for me. Okay, let's get our speed brakes up. And guys, I don't know if it's ever dawned on you, but you're blocking traffic. Good thing they are high wings and I am low wings. This is how we're going to do it right here. Let's hope my tail doesn't hit. Hey, managed to clear it. Of course, it helps that in Microsoft Flight Simulator, if you get close to somebody, they automatically disappear. And we don't want to get close to that guy there. All right, but welcome to Lanai. Now, this airport is a little bit bigger than the airport that we took off from. However, it does not have all of the same things that Hana has. For example, there's no interior on this building, which is to me a little bit disappointing. But then I know it takes a lot of work for folks to come up with airport scenery packages, so I'm not going to get too harsh on South Oak Company for this. But yeah, it kind of would have been nice to see the interior because I've never actually seen the interior of this airport or of any of these airports for that matter in real life. All right, but we're going to park right here and we'll put the parking brakes on. And that will just about do it for this leg of our journey. So once again, welcome to Hana. And in the closing credits, what we'll do is we'll just kind of walk by the various airport portions there. And when we come back in the next episode, we will be flying from here north to the island of Molokai, and we'll be landing at the next airport in our sequence. So thank you as always for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we've been using IndiaFoxtEcho's Rutan Long-EZ, as well as all of the airports from South Oak Company. The links, of course, will be in the video description below. If you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And I will catch you on leg number 2 really soon. Ciao.